everyone. I've already stumbled into my beginning today. Can you all hear me and can you all see me? You know, that's always my number one request before I start doing the show. So please do just let me know if you can see and hear me, and if there's any weird lag thing going on, transmission issues, all the things that the internet likes to do to me. So anybody have a problem? Are we ready to go? Because this is going to be a really cool show. While I'm waiting for your answer, yes, I hear a yes. Cool. Okay, great. Brittany Murphy, I have seen some of her movies, not all of them. I think I first saw her Clueless, because almost everybody saw Clueless, especially when it came out. I also loved her in Ramen Girl. But besides that, I didn't really know much about her. I mean, I thought she was a really good actress, and that's basically all I really knew. And then I heard she had died, and I didn't pay too much attention either. But when HBO just brought out their documentary, HBO Max has a documentary just came out called What Happened, Brittany Murphy. It's got a lot of good stuff in it as far as her life goes and the different issues, a little tabloidy. Some people say a little exploitive, but if you just want a good kind of overview, I don't think it's bad. So I watched the whole thing. If you have HBO Max, you're in luck. If you don't have it, you got to get a free, through Hulu, you can get 7 days free trial on it. And then you can stop it if you don't want more HBO Max. But yay, Michelle is making it here live. That's fantastic. What? Dwayne says there's about 4 pixels. What does that mean? But I sound fine. Anybody having some lagging or blurred out? Really? Is anybody having problems with that? Because I'm just going to check on my end of it here. It says I'm connected. I'm connected through the internet, so I have no clue. Gosh, very far. Oh, girl interrupted too. Yes, Jeff says girl interrupted. She was a girl who hid blurry pic pat. Really? No, I guess some people are having problems and some people aren't. So it's clear for some people. This is so frustrating. You're lagging and blurry, but okay. Honestly, I don't know what to do when that happens. It's I don't know where the buffering problem even comes in. No clue, because I'm directly connected to the internet, which is really frustrating to me because there's not much you can do about it when you go live. I have nothing else open on my computer, so I honestly don't know. Sound great. Some problems buffering. Oh, wow. Low video quality. Wow, that is so annoying. Huh. Well, I honestly don't know what to do. It's frustrating. It's very frustrating to me because I don't want to have a show where it's, like this all the time and it's uncomfortable. But audio is fine. I want a good video too. I want good video. God, you're lagging, but get on with it. Coin. Okay, you're all here. There's nothing I can do now, so I will get on with it. Hopefully it'll pick up as we go along, because there is nothing I can do. So anyway, before I start, no, I don't think it's on your end, guys. I think it's just, it's once in a while it goes bad and I have no idea why. And I've never been able to figure out the problem. So anyway, before I start, again, please do support in the middle right here. Please do subscribe. It makes a difference. Like the video, share with people, and click the bell for notifications. And some of you are saying, well, I see that hangout. It says live hangout in the middle of the week, and I never got notified. Well, that's because you actually have to join Patreon for that. That's the special folks, my special friends who are helping support the channel. They join Patreon and they get the notification to come to the live hangout. I do put the hangout, public later, but if you want to actually participate in the hangout and send me questions and ask me questions, you got to join Patreon. So that's why people keep saying, I don't understand it. I keep missing the hangout in the middle of the week. And over here is one of the books I've written, Only the Truth, $2.99 at Amazon, supports the channel. And there's other things you can click on below in the description. In the description, you'll find the links to Patreon, the links to the books on Amazon, and that helps support the channel. Okay, done with that. Now let's go on to what an interesting, what a whole bunch of stuff I'm going to talk about. One thing I'm going to talk about today is what Hollywood is really like, because many people don't even know what Brittany Murphy, and here she is I'm covering her, and she's so pretty, what she had to deal with in Hollywood. what could have happened there? I'm also going to talk about diet drugs, because she was accused of doing something like cocaine or whatever to lose weight. And she said she was not doing any such thing. I'm going to tell you, most everybody lies about that. I'm going to talk about diet drugs and how prevalent it is in Hollywood and in real life outside of Hollywood. And then I'll talk about exactly what happened to Brittany Murphy, what I think happened to Brittany Murphy, which I think no one's ever gone the direction I'm going to go with this. So stay around, because what I'm going to tell you leading up to that is very important, because it sets up exactly why things happened the way they happened. So let's take a look at Brittany. I'm going to just read a really quick thing from, good old Wikipedia. For those people who do not know her background, that's her mom when she was younger, and that's little Brittany when she was starting out doing little acting stuff. She was born to Sharon here, and a guy named Angelo Bertolotti, who they divorced when she was 2, and Bertolotti sort of ended up in prison, so he wasn't much in her life, let's put it that way. Murphy was raised by her mother in Edison, New Jersey, and then she before they went to, she was going to enroll in high school, but no, they went to Los Angeles instead, so that Murphy could pursue an acting career. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what that means when we're talking about acting, children getting into acting, like children getting into, here she is, that's one of her school plays she's in. And now she's off to the Hollywood. Now she's a child actress in Hollywood. Okay, so what about stage mothers? And we have to start there, because what brings a child into this world at such a young age? Now, and here's her mommy being, you can see they have kind of like a matching hairstyles, and it's all cool. It's all cute. Was mom Sharon, was she pushing her child to do something that her child didn't want to do? Was she a kind of Munchausen's mother who was controlling her child? Was she living vicariously through her child? Well, here is what I think happens with all of us who have children. Most of us don't have children who necessarily are going to be fabulous on stage or turn out to be concert pianists. I still remember what's his name? Oh shoot, now I'm going to blank out his name. But it was during what's the kid? Hey, somebody's got to give me the name, because I just remember it was really a great comment. Okay, what's his name? Who was doing the shows of all the talented children? He's also the one that screwed up the pageant, and is that the pageant or got the wrong name and announced the wrong person? Who's the dude who does that? He's all over television. Does game shows and stuff. What's his name? Man, I'm blanking. But so when you tell me, thank you for telling me. Anyway, he had this talent show, and this young kid came out, and he's like, I don't know what he was doing, playing the piano or whatever he was doing. That was amazing. And then he said afterwards, oh, yeah, Steve Harvey. Thank you, Steve Harvey. And after the kid finished, he just looked up and he said, sorry, kids, to his own children. Like, none of my kids could do this stuff. Steve Harvey, it was funny, because when he said, sorry, kids, I thought to myself, yeah, I raised 3 children. And they're all wonderful kids. They've grown up to be wonderful adults. But nobody was on stage. Nobody became, a professional sports player, although they might have been able to do so, because I had some very good baseball players in my kids. But my kids, they didn't become great singers or, whatever, the show life. They didn't get into the show life. And was that because I didn't push them enough, or was it because they just didn't show much interest? Well, sometimes you have a kid who's just that very lively, vibrant kid. And I think over here, Brittany was that kid. They said that ever since she was a little kid, she was always loving to be in the limelight and doing all kinds of, she loved to act. She liked to be on stage. She was bubbly and vivacious. And her mother, no doubt, saw that in her. And of course, you see your child doing something really cool and you want to encourage it. And then you can get into the whole life of being a stage mother, kind of like we also saw with JonBenet and Patsy Ramsey. JonBenet was a very pretty little girl, and her mother had been through pageants herself. She got her daughter, why don't we try a pageant? And her daughter liked it. So now mom's like the stage mother for pageant stuff. Some people have their children go into sports and do the same thing. They become the sports parent, who's always at the game yelling and making sure their kid applies to the right universities or gets seen by the right coaches so they can go pro. You get parents very involved in their children's lives when they see their child has a talent. So so some people are saying Judy Garland's mother was a piece of work. I don't know. But, let's face it, and some can overplay their role, shall we say. Maybe they're highly narcissistic and are living through their child vicariously, and they want the life their child can give them. And I'm not going to say that Sharon was like this. I'm just going to say it can be true that a parent can get very involved because they also like the limelight and the glamour that comes with it. So anyway, now we have Brittany now goes to Hollywood, and while she's in Hollywood, now she's starting to get roles. She's getting into, she's getting good roles as the girl next door type thing. Pretty girl, but wasn't glamorous at this point. And then she got a Clueless, which just sort of helped rocket her up there. Silverstone, of course, was the lead of that, and she was the blonde. And then we had the best, that's the girl they were making over. So she was getting popular in Hollywood. Now, I want to talk about popular in Hollywood, because a lot of people don't understand what that actually means. Let's go back to high school. If you wanted to be popular in high school, you had to join the right clubs. You had to wear the right clothes. You had to date the right people. And you often had to have parents who were also popular. I moved to McLean, Virginia, a fairly wealthy area, when I was 9. We had a lovely home. I went to a high school. It's considered one of the top public high schools in the United States. It was right near where one of the Kennedys lived. And I was not popular. A lot of that had to do with the fact that my parents weren't very good at being popular either. My mother was she was a homebody and an artist, and she did not hang out in social groups. She was kind of a New Englander and didn't really have a clue of, she was kind of she was, careful with her money. She sold her own clothes. And when I was a teenager, she made me a village address. For anybody here, I don't know if anybody here remembers what village addresses were, but they were the ones where they were like, they had buttons down the front, and then they had these little pleats on each side. And they had I think 10 pleats on each side. And my mother made it with 5 pleats. And so instead of, you could buy them in my town at Eleanor's Village Shop. But when I wore mine to school, the girls laughed at me in high school and said, hey, your mother must have sewn that for you, because I knew there weren't enough pleats. And I remember being angry, but I still loved that dress, and I loved my mother for making it. I just wasn't a popular girl, and I didn't join the right clubs, and my parents didn't hang out at the golf club. They didn't go to the country club. They didn't have people over for dinner who were politically connected. And quite frankly, I just had no clue of how to do this whole socially thing. So we are sometimes, to get ahead, have to know how to do these things. And even in our work lives, regular work lives, I was a sign language interpreter for many years. Luckily for me, I just got a job working at the hospitals. And as long as I showed up and was good at my job, thank God I was fine. But let's assume that I wanted to do sign language at the Kennedy Center, do other kinds of sign language, more visible, maybe sign for the president or something like that. I would have to hobnob with the right people. I would have to go to the right events in the sign language and deaf community. And I wasn't good at it, so I wasn't going to get those opportunities. So this is kind of normal life. You want to get ahead, got to do the right things. Now you go to Hollywood. And some people actually think that when you go to Hollywood, I've seen this actually written down, or you go to Hollywood, and if you're a good actress, you get the work. You don't have to sleep with anybody, the casting couch. You don't have to hook up with Harvey Weinstein. You can, you might, even people who do that once, it's their skills that are going to carry them. What world do you live in? Well, you don't live in Hollywood. That's not the way things work. Now, I'm not going to say there's not some people who have made it through Hollywood without having to do a lot of things they didn't want to do. But it is a place where you have to play the game. And the game, it may not be the casting couch, but it may be you have to go to the right social events, get in good with the right people. You got to have the connections. So when I went to Hollywood when I was 19, so I'm going to show you these pictures because this always gets people. So anyway, here are my pictures. All righty. So these are the pictures of me at 19 years old when I went to Hollywood. I decided one day I wanted to try to see if I could be a model and an actress. I had no skills in acting. I'd never done any acting in my life, but okay. So I got in a car and I drove to Hollywood. And I managed to get these pictures done. And I actually did not sleep with that guy. And he was a Playboy photographer, by the way. And I did not do Playboy either. But I did get these pictures taken for my, my headshot. I have a headshot, but these aren't this. This was on my. They have 4 pictures, and these are 2 of them. And I started out doing. I made a deal with myself when I went to Hollywood. I said, I will not do the casting couch. I will not. I will get. If I'm going to get anywhere, I'm going to get there by being, by the proper way. So, well, I didn't get very far. Let me tell you. I was invited. One day I got a call from Universal Studios. And I came in to talk to whatever producer it was. And he had me come in like at 5:30 or 6 o'clock, and all the secretaries were leaving. And they were all, everybody was leaving the office. And he had me sit down. He looked at my photo and he loved this picture. So he's like, I love your legs. And it was for the show called Police Story. I think I was going to play a prostitute, but anyway, it was going to be a speaking part. And he said, love your legs. There's great pictures. And then he said, well, we got to go get somebody to eat. It's 6 o'clock. Let's go out and get something to eat. And I knew what was coming. This was going to be sex. And so I said to him, I'm so sorry. I already have plans for this evening. And he kept the pictures, but he took my resume and threw it across the table at me, across the desk. And he said, call me when you get into the union, babe. That's Hollywood. So thank you. I can pronounce the names here. Thank you. Beautiful pics. Thank you. I like them. And my kid, I had a couple of these hanging on the wall once when I was like, my kids were like 12 or 14, whatever, they were teenagers. And their friends would come over and go, that can't be you. And I'm like, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. But now let me tell you the other things that happen in Hollywood. So I'd gone to these appointments. I wouldn't sleep with them and I didn't get work. And then one day a producer met me somewhere else. And then he asked me to go to a party. So I thought, okay, at least I'll go to this party and see what's up. I went to the party and they started passing around. They had alcohol, but they were starting to pass around these bowls of basically Quaaludes and stuff. And the concept was that you take the Quaalude and then you go in the back room and sleep with somebody. And then the producer I was with was saying like, oh, we're going to go to Vegas next week. So hun, you can go to Vegas with us. And the whole deal is this. You sleep with me now. I'm not going to promise you anything, but you're going to hook into the right circle. And if I like sleeping with you and like traveling with you, you might get more work. And I didn't take the drugs and I said no to the sex and I gave up in Hollywood eventually because I didn't get anywhere, Now, true, I didn't have great talent either, so I had an interesting experience. But what I did see while I was there was talking to a lot of the girls. They were sleeping with everybody. They were sleeping with actors. They were sleeping with the producers. That was how they were trying to get into the circle. Now, Brittany had one advantage. Her advantage was that she had her mother with her, bringing her there as a child actor, so that she had somebody watching over her saying, you can't sleep with my kid. Now, that doesn't mean they still don't have to play some of the game, the popularity game. Mom has to get in good with people or it's not going to work. Because Brittany may be a good little actress, but I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of good little actresses out there. You can be replaced. So mom had to have something. I don't know what mom was doing to get into the right circles, to meet the right people, to promote her child. I don't know. And I'm not going to go there. I'm just saying. That's Hollywood. And it's like what you can experience in regular life, where you have to hobnob with the right people, drink with the right people after work, whatever you have to do. Because I've been in television too, and let me tell you, it's a lot of that stuff going on in television. If you don't hobnob with the right people, you don't get as far a good portion of the time, unless you just have really good luck. And so Hollywood's like on steroids for that. You're really rushed into these type of things and you're pushed into these type of things. And if you want to be somebody, you're going to have to give a little something, whatever that something is. So it's a really tough world, and you can be replaced. You can. And so if you don't play the game, if you don't look right, if you don't meet the right people, you're not going to make it. And that is the way it is. So, so now let's take a look back at what was happening with Brittany. So you can, if you're a guy here, you can look at my pictures. That's your last chance. Okay. Now let's go back to Brittany. Okay. So now she's there. Now she's still got her mommy, and her mom is right there with her. And this is Brittany. This is her mom. And when mom was, she was probably enjoying Hollywood too. I mean, Brittany's making money. They're probably going to parties. And let me tell you, it's ongoing. This is what people don't understand. The pressure is not like, hey, once this month, come to a party. No, it's like constant. You got to show up here. You got to go there. Hey, you got to meet so-and-so. It never ends. It's exhausting. And then they start telling you how you should behave and all that stuff, and how thin you need to be and what hair color you need if you want to make it. But so meanwhile, now Brittany is now grown up, and she's gotten into, oh, look here. Now she's with the movie Just Married. She's starting to make it. Ashton Kutcher. They have a romance. After I think about a year, that romance ends. Nope. Ashton's never said why it ended. She never said why it ended. But again, you're there in the mix of everything, and that's who your people are that you're going to hook up with. And so she hooked up with him. Then she did a movie with Eminem, and there was rumors they had some kind of fling, but they didn't cop to that. So, and then this is where it gets interesting. Brittany gets engaged twice in a very short period of time, to this guy and then to this guy. And again, you wonder what's happening. And these people are all sort of in the circle of showbiz. Why is she getting engaged so quickly? Why is she getting unengaged so quickly? What is going on? Is it her own personality that's having problems? Does she have bad taste in men? Is her mother influencing her? Maybe her mother's around too much, and these dudes are like, no, I'm tired of your mom. I don't know what happened, but she's struggling with relationships, just struggling. And then there starts to be this whole issue about her when she came to Hollywood, she was a kind of a normalish way, but then she started getting really scrawny. This is before she married Simon. Why? And there was all kinds of tabloid stuff that she was doing drugs or cocaine or whatever. And she's like, no, I don't ever touch anything illegal. Now, let me talk to you about that. I went to Hollywood. Oh, wait a minute. Okay. So I'm going to show you. Okay. I said I wasn't going to show you the picture, but I'm going to go back to my pictures because I just have to for a second here. All right. When I got to Hollywood, I wasn't quite this thin. I was probably 10 to 15 pounds more than the photo would accept. And, photos do make you heavier. So that's why women have to be so scrawny in order to come off as decent looking. And I was just a little over what I needed to be. And you know how those last 10 pounds are those damn 10 pounds you can't get rid of? Man, I tried and I wasn't succeeding. And I had been a little overweight most of my life, by the way. I was never a scrawny girl. I was always running about 170 or 180. I was not a thin girl. I actually lost all the weight before I went to Hollywood, but didn't get rid of the last bit. And how do you think I got rid of the last bit? How did I do that? I'll tell you how I did that. I moved into an apartment literally in downtown Hollywood, which, by the way, is really shabby. People always think Hollywood is like glamorous. No, Beverly Hills is glamorous. Hollywood itself has got a lot of low-income housing. So I moved into this house and this apartment, and next door to me happened to be this drug dealer. How convenient. And because he lived in Hollywood, he had a lot of amphetamines that he could sell. And I'd never touched amphetamines in my life, but I had this weight I wanted to lose. And he said, well, hey, here, I'll just give you a couple of these. And normally I'd never touched anything. I wasn't a drug user, but I'm like, I got to lose this weight. So I took one of these, or half of one of these. I can't remember what it was. And all I can say is my whole house got clean that day, and I'm not a house cleaner. My house was sparkling by the time that day was over, and I hadn't touched any food at all. How about that? And I took those, whatever I took, for not very long, but just long enough to look like this. And then I said, I can't touch this stuff ever again because, geez, I like it way too much because I have so much energy and I'm very super energetic, and I can look how I don't have to eat. I never have to eat anything. I loved speed, amphetamines, but after I think it was two and a half weeks, I'm like, that's it, I'm done. So I was the right weight for Hollywood, got my pictures taken. So now let's go back to Brittany. What was Brittany doing? Was she really not touching anything? Was she really not? Was she totally, oh no, she said, I'm not getting skinny. Now, anorexia and bulimia, let me talk, there's two possibilities there, or it's just taking pills. Now, I want to bring up a thing called phentermine, and I want to bring this up for everybody out here. Because first of all, phentermine is super popular in Hollywood. Why? Because it's legal. It's not an illegal drug. And it's not a legal drug in your neighborhood. There's these diet centers, and I'm going to put big quotes around diet. And they have doctors there. I'm going to put quotes around those doctors too. They're drug dealers. Straight up, 100% drug dealers. And I'm going to say that to any doctor who works one of these diet centers. You're there handing out phentermine to every single person that walks in there. You're a drug dealer. It's no different than going down to the corner. But here's what happens. It's legal. So phentermine is real easy to get. And way later on, when I was, I think probably I'm going to say in my 40s, and I was like, again, 10 pounds up, and I was going to do some documentary work. And I was just a little fat. And I heard about phentermine then. And amazingly enough, what happened was I went to one of these diet centers. I walked in, the guy took my blood pressure, asked me if I had any issues, made me fill out a piece of paper. Within 5 minutes, I was out of there with this thing called phentermine. And I took them, what they told me, and I cleaned my entire house and didn't need anything. And I said, wait a minute, this is nothing but amphetamines. Now, they claim it's not an amphetamine, but it works just like an amphetamine. I don't care what you call it. It causes heart problems. It causes blood pressure problems. It's dangerous stuff. And it's being handed out like you would not believe to anybody who walks into one of these centers. And they just hand it out like candy. And it's handed out in Hollywood too. So no, she doesn't have to take illegal drugs or cocaine. She could just take phentermine. And so it's a super popular, works very, very well because it is basically an amphetamine-like drug, and you can lose weight. And if you have to lose weight in Hollywood because you want the next role, that's the thing you'll do. So sad but true. That's kind of the way it is. Kay says, I was a medical assistant working at Jenny Craig in 1997 when they did Fenphenine. Yeah. Jenny Craig too. I mean, Jenny Craig is supposed to be reputable, but they're handing out drugs. They're drug dealers. That's all it comes down to. And Claire says, handed out like Tic Tacs. Absolutely. It's still being done on a regular basis, still being done. And it's horrifying. And people get addicted to it. Not addicted in the sense if they don't take it, they can't get up and they fall apart and have, horrible reactions. Or severe pain or anything. It's just that they're like, damn, I can't get the housework done. Shoot, I'm lit. I feel very lethargic. But if I took that, I could feel really good because it doesn't just make you not eat. It makes you energetic. And on top of that, people don't stick with the dose told them. If they're told they have to take whatever they have to take, they'll double it because eventually you do get a tolerance. So then they just double it and double it and double it. And it gets euphoria too. That's correct, Jeff. It's very, very concerning. So do I think that Brittany may have used some kind of medication to lose weight? The answer is yes. I do believe so. She also might be anorexic and just to start refusing to eat. She also might have been bulimic. I don't know. But the point is, the stress of Hollywood telling you have to be a certain way. If you want to work, if you want to be a star, is very, very, it gets people. It gets to people. So now here she is. She's struggling, and she's already lost out on. Well, all her relationships are kind of going to crap, and then she meets this guy, and this is all right. So now we're up to Simon. All right. So Siimon Monjack. All right. Here's Brittany. Oh, Simon. Oh, he's so cool. He's so awesome. Supposedly, he writes screenplays, and he's in Hollywood, and he claims to be wealthy and have dated like Madonna, and he said he had a brain tumor once, and he cured it with shark's fins. I mean, the guy had stories, but he also apparently had personality. So somehow or other, he got his hooks into Brittany, and he might have seen this was a good deal because she had talent. She could make money, and she was very pretty. So he gets everything in one package. I believe, I believe he was psychopathic, very, very psychopathic. His mother actually came on a talk show, and she kept making all these excuses for him. I mean, oh my God, and a massive amount of excuses. So she was an enabler and a half for her psychopathic son. But he made his way around the world, committing crimes, essentially fraud. Fraud is a big thing for a lot of psychopaths. He committed a lot of fraud, lied to women, used them for their money, and to move up in life. And then he found over here Brittany, and she was at a low point in her life where she was struggling. She wasn't having success in her relationships, and she was struggling to be successful. And here came this guy. Now remember, her daddy hadn't been in her life. So now she's got this figure who's, and a psychopath like this will understand how to play somebody really, really well. He'll know how to be the lover, the husband, the best friend. He knows how to play this. He's done it before. And even her mother can easily get swept up by what he has to offer. So, here we have this essentially a trio of them, where, Brittany always lived with her mom, Sharon, because Sharon was a stage mother, and they came as a package. And I'm sure that he found a way to exploit that, to make the mother also feel like, your daughter needs this. Hollywood's out to get her. The people out there don't care about your daughter. They're using and abusing her. Eventually got them to, I think, very paranoid. He started closing in the walls around Brittany so that she would, just trust him. He took over everything. He took over managing her. So you couldn't get to her except through this psycho. And Sharon probably was under his spell as well. And it's a good term for it, a spell. After the difficulty she was having to have this person sort of put his arms around both of them and say, I'm here for both of you, and I'm going to fight for you, and I'm going to help you, and all this stuff. They sort of ended up almost like he kidnapped them, almost like they are suffering from Stockholm Syndrome. Stockholm Syndrome was where you're kidnapped, but you start identifying with the person who is holding you hostage, because that person is the one who feeds you, helps you do everything. And that's the trick about when you're holding somebody hostage. You have to make sure that they entirely depend on you for everything, for emotional support, for pretty much everything, so that you feel like you cannot cross this person, that you should be entirely grateful to this person, that you should be thankful. Everything is about the person who is keeping you in this situation. So it's called Stockholm Syndrome. I think both of them had Stockholm Syndrome with Siimon Monjack. So there they were. And she wasn't even married to him all that long before she died. But he had taken over, her career had taken a dive. He wasn't a good promoter for her, a good manager. He wasn't. He was just basically using her money and using them. And he, I think to some extent, in a psychopathic way, he was obsessed with her. He wanted to be with her all the time. He wanted her. He took pictures of her constantly. He was like almost like stalker, stalker who'd married her, because it made him feel good to have her in his life. And I think he was truly obsessed with her. And I think that he thought he could control her forever and she would be his forever. But meanwhile, while all this is going on, it seems like she's getting thinner and thinner, sicker and sicker. She's getting very ill till the day that this news comes out, that suddenly she is dead at 32 years old. And that's pretty darn young. And the question was, what the heck killed her? And the autopsy came back and said that she had, it was a pneumonia, She had low iron, and it was some combination of also legal drugs in her system that sort of all came together and did her in. And by the time she was brought to the hospital, it was too late. So the next thing we see is that her daddy, he shows up out of the blue. Now he cares about his daughter. And he claims that she was poisoned. And the interesting part about the whole issue with the poisoning is that anybody who's followed this story knows that hold on a second. How much later was it? Jeez, I'm just drawing a blank here. When did he die? 5 months later? 5 weeks later. Why am I just blanking on this? Okay, wait a minute. I've lost my mind here. May 23rd. Okay, she died on December 20th of 2009, and on May 23rd, Monjack was found dead at the same residence. Okay, 5 months. Suddenly I'm thinking 5 weeks. I'm like, that can't be right. 5 months later, he's dead. And so basically the same causes, pneumonia, and he had a lot of drugs in his system, but the doctor said the drugs didn't cause it. But basically, he died also of this. And so one of the concepts came out that there was mold in the house, and maybe mold killed them. And now Sharon never had any problem with the mold. She didn't die. She was. He managed to get her hair tested, and the hair came back with high concentration of certain chemicals, which could indicate that maybe she was poisoned with rat. He said rat poison. Somebody else suggested, one of my subscribers suggested cadmium. Cadmium? Is that what you call that stuff? Hold on a second. Let's see if I got it right. Cadmium. Yeah, cadmium poisoning. But then somebody else came on, one of these medical examiners came on and said, no, that was only in this part of the hair. It wasn't in the roots. So therefore it's just from hair dye. So there's not really any proof that she was poisoned with anything illegal. But then again, you wonder what they tested for. So this became a possibility. Now, because of this possible poisoning thing, and Sharon being the last woman standing, essentially, she's alive. Her daughter's dead, and he's dead. Oh, and there was a lot of suspicion because of this kind of creepy behavior that we saw right after Brittany died. This is Sharon with Simon here, and she's looking like they're a couple. It's kind of creepy. And somebody pointed out too that they almost look like in this photo that they're like parents and their daughter died. I mean, it's weird. It's like looks like the couple, not these two. So that is a little weird. So you say, did she poison? Did Sharon poison her daughter and Simon? And some people say, well, I think Sharon poisoned Brittany to get her out of the way so she could have Simon. Okay, it's an interesting thought. I mean, it's happened before. Heavy metals, correct. Okay, it was heavy metals. Heavy metals in the hair. Yes, that was it. So I want to play a couple the clips of the 911 call of when Brittany was dying, because I think this is interesting. Let's see if I got the right one first. Oh, is this the right one first? Dang it all! It is the right one first. Darn it! I can't remember which one it is. I'm going to stop it if I got the wrong one here. Wrong one. Okay. This one, and the camera's a little shaky. Sorry about that. I didn't take it directly from the internet because sometimes they get me for copyright infraction. So.
Fire Department 97, what's the address of the emergency? 1895 Rising Glen Road. What's the phone number you're calling from? Tell me exactly what happened. Oh, somebody's passed out. Somebody what? My daughter's passed out. We're doing mouth to mouth. Please get your friend. Okay. Please. Okay. All right, we're going to. How old is your daughter? She's 30. Please. She's 30. Okay, she's with you now? Yes, there's someone coming. Yeah, ma'am. You don't have to yell. We're going to send somebody out there, okay?
Okay. And this is the next one. Okay. I hope you could hear it. As I say, I kind of sort of tape these with my phone because somehow the internet, way they pick things up, they can claim that you're copyright infringement, and then they, especially when you're doing live shows, and then they take your channel down. So didn't really want that to happen. So the 911 call shows a very, very distraught Sharon. Sharon sounds heartbroken to me. She sounds completely freaked out to me. She lost, I mean, Sharon and her daughter have been hooked up so tightly for so long. I find it really hard to believe that she suddenly has such a thing for her daughter's husband, that she had to get rid of her daughter. No, I think she was absolutely devastated. I do think when you see some of the things she's after that, you say, well, it looks like she's getting too cuddly with him. Mind you, she's in Hollywood. Hollywood is a strange place, and doesn't mean people aren't using medication, that she might be on certain medications following her daughter's death that make her not thinking really clearly. There was claim they were like sleeping in the same bed, and maybe, weird as it sounds to people, they may literally have just crawled there and cried together. I mean, because they just wanted comfort. So I know there's going to be people say, no, they were sleeping together, but I don't see any. I just don't see anything that says that she killed her daughter. Then, if she actually did kill off her daughter, why would she kill off Simon 5 months later? I mean, what would be the purpose of doing that? That's the reason she was after her, she got rid of her daughter. None of that makes sense. And so I don't necessarily see that there's any proof that she's like, a psychopath herself, who's, Munchausen syndrome type, where she's controlling everybody and then killing them all off for attention. I don't see that. I think she lost a great deal when she lost her daughter. And when he died as well, I think she's lost and alone in the world. And I don't see it. As a profiler, I do not see that she killed anybody. So now I do want to point out what I think most likely happened. We're going to have to go back in time a little bit to one of Simon's previous ladies. Her name, let's see, where is it? This is the woman, and her name is Barbara Ragsdale. And oh my God, you have to hear the story of Barbara Ragsdale to understand what really may have happened. Okay, who is Barbara? What happened to her? I'm going to read part of the story because it's just really interesting. Okay, now, am I going to say that 100% of this is absolutely true? Not necessarily, but a good portion of it is clearly has been validated. So just listen for a second. All right. So Elizabeth Ragsdale had Brittany and Simon allegedly met when she was 17. Oh, okay, I'm not going to go to that. Okay, let me go to Elizabeth. Okay. In 1998, this is before Brittany, Simon popped the question to Elizabeth Ragsdale about marrying her in a Harrods department store. At this time, however, cracks began to appear in his facade. After Elizabeth turned him down for sex, he tearfully told her that he had spinal cancer and was undergoing treatments in Morocco. Elizabeth acquiesced to his pleading and they made love. He was very rough, she said, adding that it wasn't apparently what she wanted. However, in September of 1998, the two were together in Monaco, and he said that they were going to have children. She'd have to get pregnant right then because of the shark cartilage treatments that he was taking for his brain tumor or whatever he was claiming to have would make him sterile. So Simon, now it's very interesting. Simon's mother defended her son. Remember, I told you she's an enabler and a half. He developed extreme paranoia after his own father's death from cancer. And she says, I don't think that he really meant to tell people he had cancer when he didn't. I think he's just like Munchausen's. She said he had Munchausen's, that he developed symptoms of things because he was paranoid. No, that's not true. He was using those things to manipulate people. Okay, so anyway, she got pregnant. Elizabeth gets pregnant in Monaco. Now, here's what's very interesting. Elizabeth's pregnancy wasn't a happy one. She got very sick while carrying her and Simon's child. Elizabeth wanted to fly her sister and family out to visit Monaco, which Simon shot down. A friend of Elizabeth started to get worried because she was cut off from everyone, and this isolation was taking a toll. One day when Elizabeth came to visit, her friend said she looked like she had gotten back from a concentration camp. This friend confronted Simon and told him to take Elizabeth to a doctor immediately. If he wouldn't, then she would, and Elizabeth thinks this friend saved her life. Now, mind you, prior to Brittany dying, apparently she was not visiting a doctor either, that she was sick. She even told her mother at some point, I think I'm dying. And still, that no, she didn't go to the doctor. Now, you wonder what kind of mother wouldn't push her kid to go to the doctor. But again, I think Simon controlled everything. I think he said, "Oh, she's exaggerating. She's as sick as she says. You know how Brittany is. She's she feels things more than she really has. So she'll be fine." And then she died. So at any rate, Simon said he wanted to have the baby on U.S. soil, and he flew back to New York ahead of Elizabeth. When she arrived in the Big Apple, Elizabeth called up Simon to tell her she had arrived. He hung up on her. Elizabeth's subsequent attempts to contact Simon proved useless. After Simon essentially ghosted her, Elizabeth called up his mother, and the mother revealed he never had cancer and had been using Elizabeth's money this whole time. I guess at least his mother came clean at that point. So anyway, she gave birth to a son she named Elijah Ragsdale. And so there's all kinds of bizarre stuff after that about this guy and his what he tried to get out of the woman he had a baby with. And it's thought that Brittany had no clue that I think he had 2 children and she didn't have any clue what was going on. So he was a good liar. But the interesting story to me is the way this woman was sick and thin. What was happening? Why is it that Simon has 2 women he's lived with and both of them start looking like concentration camp victims? Why is that? Why are they both imprisoned essentially in their homes, and he keeps people from seeing them? What is going on that he is controlling and making them do? Is he forcing them into, hold on one second, guys. Well, hold on one second. I'm having a small disaster here. I forgot to plug in my, it'll be okay in a second. I hope. As soon as I plug in my, I forgot to plug in the computer. I'm having enough troubles today. Technologically, I don't need more problems. It's now plugged in. Okay, we're good. So why are these 2 women getting really skinny? Why are they losing weight? Why are they getting ill? And why are they getting really ill? And here's something interesting. Right before Brittany died, she had given an interview and they said, "What do you want to do with your life from now on?" And she said, "I want to have a family." Well, I'm going to say Siimon Monjack isn't into kids. He had 2 of them he didn't want. And now the other, well, let's go back to where we are with Brittany here. Okay. Now, the woman he has chosen as his wife is now wanting to have a kid. Well, first of all, that kid is going to screw up a lot of her film work. He's going to have to be a dad. That's going to be a problem, isn't it? So, what happened to Elizabeth Ragsdale when she got pregnant was, supposedly he said that, she'd have to hurry up and get pregnant, but then again, he didn't want the kid. So I think it was a control mechanism. And I don't think he wanted her kid to have a kid with her either. So now suddenly she gets sicker and dies. Why is that? Now, did he do something to kill her, or was he doing something to try to prevent her from getting pregnant? Now, apparently the poisoning issue, there's been no proof that either one of these 2 women were poisoned, yet they both got extremely thin and sick. I'm not saying he couldn't have poisoned them. He could have. I just don't know that we have proof that ever happened. But it's also possible he used legal drugs to harm them. Now, when people take certain drugs, it's easy to then mix drugs for them. For example, cough syrup. A lot of people, you can do a lot of cough syrup and do a lot of damage and get addicted to that. It can make you drowsy. It can make you aspirate. So you end up with aspiration pneumonia. You can do all kinds of things with legal drugs to control somebody. And they don't know what's wrong with them because they don't see it happening, especially when you're able to get drugs and you got many, many pills. And they had a lot of pill bottles hanging around. So all you have to do is add one from here and add one from there, maybe mix it into something else. encourage them to take something when they're not they're half out of it. They don't know what they're taking. You can harm them dramatically with legal drugs. So push a lot of phentermine, push a lot of whatever else she's taking, mix the drugs up for her, make her sick, make her dependent, because that's apparently what he did to Elizabeth Ragsdale. At least that's what the history says, that under his care, which was being where she was imprisoned by him, she became very, very thin and very ill. And it was her friend who got her out of there and saved her. But now he had another woman, and she also became very thin and very ill. And then as soon as she says she wants to have a baby, she dies. So I don't know that. I can't prove that he mixed up things to give her to make her sick. But that's what Munchausen syndrome is, by the way. So his mommy, who claimed he had Munchausen syndrome because he was claiming he had diseases he did not have in order to manipulate people and get attention, just like women. So, hey, it's not only women that exhibit Munchausen syndrome, but it's also men, especially. They're all both psychopaths. That usually it's a female thing, but it doesn't mean that a male psychopath can't use that technique too, to get the attention of people, to get the sympathy, to get into their lives and manipulate them and use their money. So I believe it's true. I think he did exhibit Munchausen syndrome and possibly Munchausen syndrome by proxy. He may well have been making her ill so she would become dependent on him. I don't know what he was doing to Sharon. He may have convinced Sharon that, you know, Brittany had all these issues and he had to take care of her, and he was the only one who would take care of her. I don't know what happened with him with Sharon, what he was able to make her also under his spell, but I think it was Munchausen syndrome by proxy. I think he was indeed poisoning her, whether with illegal drugs or legal drugs, more likely legal drugs, to make her sick and then not take her to the doctor saying we can take care of this ourselves. She gets sicker and sicker and more dependent until, let's say, she wants to have a kid, and maybe he's like, oh my God, I got to stop her from having the kid. And he gives her more drugs, and one day her system just collapses. And he's like, oh crap, I didn't mean to give her that much. Or maybe he did. I don't know. I tend to think he didn't mean to kill her. And I'll tell you why I don't think he meant to kill her. 5 months later, he dies of similar causes. Now, the chances of that happening are so unlikely that both people would die of similar causes within 5 months. I don't buy it for a minute. I believe what happened is I think he did poison her with probably illegal drugs and overdid it, and she died. And now he was totally distraught. He lost his possession. He lost his possession. Remember, I think he was obsessed with her at the same time. I think he was using her for the money. So then he started running through all her money. The creditors were coming after him. The creditors were coming after him. There were all kinds of information about him was coming clear. His life was in a huge nosedive. And he lost her too. I think that he started doing more and more of the drugs that he had already been giving her. And that was basically suicide. So I believe what we have here is possible, I won't say murder-suicide, but possible poisoning, accidental, manslaughter, suicide. So I'm going to go with manslaughter, suicide. Manslaughter, suicide. And I find it interesting. Nobody's gone there with this theory because this is the most likely thing to have happened with his psychopathic personality, with his Munchausen syndrome type personality, with him keeping her hostage in the house and controlling her and her getting sicker and sicker. That's Munchausen syndrome. And then she dies. That's either murder or manslaughter. He didn't take her to the doctor. He wasn't trying to save her. So, or at least not in his head. He didn't want somebody to find out what he was doing to her, most likely. He didn't want to lose control. So whether he planned to murder her or it was manslaughter, I don't know which one. I'm going to go with manslaughter. And then when everything went to hell, he's like one of those guys that kills off his family and then kills himself. Everything went to hell. His life was screwed. He knew he was in a nosedive, and he just continued what he was doing to her, to himself. So I would say murder/manslaughter, suicide. That is my theory as to what happened to Brittany. And I think it's more logical than I see that the mom was poisoning them, or that it was totally accidental, that both of them just got sick within 5 months of each other and died of the same thing, like mold got to them. That's just insanity. So how come he stayed overweight? Okay, I'm going to answer some questions now. how come he stayed overweight? Well, I didn't say he took drugs to make himself thin. He wanted to make sure she was thin. So that she took phenphenine or did other things to stay extremely thin. And supposedly his ex-girlfriend, the one who had the baby, ex-fiance, said he liked anorexic women. And I'm going to say he liked anorexic women because they're desperate women who are desperately trying to stay thin, and he can control them. So yes, I'm sure he pushed her anorexia. He pushed anything that would keep her thin. Himself, he wasn't doing that. He might have been doing a whole bunch of other stuff, but I don't think he was doing that at all. This is interesting. It's bizarre how beautiful she was and how comparably awful the husband looks. Well, I mean, she was an actress and he was a screenwriter, supposedly. So he wasn't that bad looking, except near the end. After she died, people were saying he was sweating. He looked like absolute crap. So he was definitely doing a whole bunch of weird stuff. A whole bunch of weird stuff. Evelina says, "Oh, sorry. The video quality is okay. Oh, good. All right." Lisa says, "I always thought it was strange that they both died in similar circumstances, like he planned it." I don't know that I'm not sure he planned for her to die at that point, but I do think his over control and of what he was doing, I believe what he was doing to her and encouraging her to do, ended up in her death. And then he was like, his whole world just fell apart because, psychopaths like to control their worlds. And just like, when you see a husband who suddenly kills off his whole family and himself, you say, why did he do that? Well, usually finances. Usually he's lost his job. He's in financial trouble. He's been caught for embezzling something. His whole world crashes. So he kills off his family and then kills himself. That's not unusual. Sometimes it's just done a little bit differently. So no. That's a good point. Heart problems and poor self-care can cause water retention. Yeah, that's possible. Oh, here's a good point. Jolly Ray says, "It's awful that someone you trust is giving you things to control and ultimately kill you." Well, here's something very important for young women and older women to know too, that when someone feels they have to control your life, that's the big red flag, because no one should want to control your life. They should want to support you in what you want to do. And when they start telling you, "I can handle everything, I should handle the checkbook," and she never drove. She never drove. She never got a license. She didn't handle her checkbook. She basically was like a child who gave up everything for somebody else to control. First her mother, and then this guy. And that doesn't allow you to be an adult. It doesn't allow you to make real good choices for yourself. And when somebody starts to close you in and make your world smaller and smaller, where you can't see friends, where you can't have outside managers, where everything is about them taking care of you, that's a good indication that you've got either a psychopathic mate there who is controlling everything about you, and you're not free. You're a prisoner, and it's a horribly terrible thing. Well, that's it. Well, she says Sharon auctioned off Brittany's belongings, even her passport. Well, I'm not going to get to what happens after the fact. I mean, money talks. Money does talk. When people are willing to pay ungodly sums of money for stuff, oh my God, that's my daughter's passport. It's right there. You want out? How much money are you going to pay me for this? I'll remember it. I'll take a picture of it. You can. So handlers, handlers. Wait a minute. Handler, and mind games. That's true. Very much mind games. Creative Award says handlers. Yeah, you can have handlers. That's interesting. You can also have handlers in Hollywood. You can end up with a handler, which would be your manager. And your manager can be abusive as well. So you got to be very careful when you give up your own right to choose to somebody else. But when you get into a situation where you have a career, which is almost impossible to manage on your own, it is. I mean, I myself, I have not had a creative manager, but I have had literary agents. I've had 4 literary agents handling my books. And you don't get to make certain choices. When you have a literary agent, they make those choices for you. They say, okay, we're going to go out and find you a publisher. And then they say, this is the publisher you go with, and this is the contract we should take. And people say, well, don't have one. Do it on your own. Guess what? It doesn't work on your own because the publishers don't like that and they don't talk to you. So you're screwed. You're actually forced into having literary agents and talent agents and managers because that's how the whole business works. So you're going to, at some point, have a handler. Same thing with boxing. My brother-in-law was a boxer, a famous boxer, Simon Brown, won 3 belts. He always had somebody. At one point, he had Don King. And there's a guy I didn't like. Don King managed you, and he what he said went. And when he set up fights, you went and did those fights. And I'm not going to get into all the things I think Don King did. But I find him crooked and psychopathic. Anyways, just I don't like his behaviors and how he handled people because he is a handler, and it's very unfortunate. This is a good point Jeff makes. She also wasn't unhealthy at any other point until she met him. I don't know that's true. I think she was already doing whatever she was to get thin before she met him. I think I don't know that I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But I mean, a lot of girls, I'm saying I showed up in Hollywood and knew that was the thing. It was reported he went through $3 million in 3 years. Was that money gone by the time he died? I think he was pretty much out of it. I think her will, Simon was always on her movie sets and did her hair and makeup. Oh my God, yes. And he wasn't so good at that either. He wanted to control every aspect. And as far as the money went, you would have to go research all that. I did not. I'm here to talk about the actual what happened to them, and as far as their health went, how she died, why she probably died. But yes, apparently he did go through a whole lot of her money. I can tell you that. I know he went through a lot of her money. And that was one of the things that even when Sharon was I think the will was, her stuff was left to Sharon and not to him. Brittany did not put him in the will, supposedly. And this is all I'm reading on the internet. So I don't know the accuracy, but apparently he was still controlling the purse strings after she died and was spending money. So yeah, I think he was in trouble. There was a lot of stuff coming down on top of him. So I think he just completely lost control. Oh, hey, Joe says, I'm a massive boxing fan and remember Simon Brown well. Don King, he never met a fighter he wasn't inclined to rip off. Oh, yeah, yeah. One day I'll do a whole, I'm going to do I will do a video one day on Hurricane Carter. And that's really kind of interesting because Reuben Hurricane Carter, because he got convicted of murder and people say he didn't do it. But this whole thing was the boxing world. And I went to see that show because I knew the boxing world. And it's going to be a really interesting video on Hurricane Carter, Reuben Hurricane Carter. So let's see. What? Claimed the house had an evil presence. Well, it was, the house was definitely kind of creepy, in the sense of everything overwhelmed. They had a really weird confined world where they lived within, and yeah, I'm going to say I saw some stuff. I'm like, it just looked like kind of it looked like a fancy prison is what it looked like. Let me see what else. I will get to that. I will get to that because it's a whole very, very fascinating story. But I will do a whole video on that. So I won't make comment of it then. Let me see what else you all have to say here. Yes, this is a good point. Jeff says also important that she was so young, only 32. This isn't normal health issues for that age group generally. Absolutely, her health issues were bizarre and increasing, and she was, that's not normal. And the thing she just, she just died. Well, what happens, I think, especially because of Hollywood, there's an acceptance in Hollywood of people abusing drugs. There's an acceptance of people doing stuff they shouldn't do, going to parties and doing coke, just doing all kinds of stuff in order to keep the energy level going, to keep thin, and to party. So there's a lot of stuff going on. That's why I said, when I went to that with the producer to that house and we all sat around, they passed out dishes of drugs. I'd never seen something like that before. And I'm like, holy crap. And I knew there were like a lot more quaaludes, which leads to Bill Cosby. And I'm like, I don't know that he had to force quaaludes on girls, because you just hold them out and they go, okay, I'm going to take that. So I'm going to sleep with you and get a starring role. That's the way the women were thinking. It's really, really very sad. But drugs is everywhere. So I think they played down the fact that she had they were legal drugs, but a lot of drugs in her system that aren't normal. You shouldn't have that many drugs in your system. I mean, one drug, maybe you took some cough medicine, or maybe you took some antibiotics. But when you have a whole bunch of things in your system, something's not right. Something is definitely not right. And I think that, unfortunately, they downplayed a lot of that, what was going on with her. And it's really sad. So, well, forever young. Mom's not smart enough to poison anyone. I don't see it in the trajectory. I don't see her torturing her daughter for a couple of years to do what? Because remember, they were best buddies. They were almost like sisters more than mother-daughter. And mom was her best friend. And her mom got to be in Hollywood. Her mom got to go to parties. Her mom got to see her daughter in great movies. I don't think mom killing her off makes a whole heck of a lot of sense. But I do think her mom, when the stress in Hollywood got too much, and people don't understand this, when the stress becomes too much and you can't control things, this is the perfect time for Mr. Psycho to show up, Mr. Psychopath, to say, I can control things for you. I can put up a protective barrier for you. I can make your life easier. I will take care of everything, because you're getting stressed out. She's getting stressed out. So I think that's why both of them fell under his spell and thought he was actually doing good for them. And by the time things go on, you get more and more trapped. As I say, Stockholm Syndrome. I believe Stockholm Syndrome is really important here, because once you become dependent on someone to that extent, and what we're not seeing on the outside is this thing. You wonder why a lot of times women don't walk out on their abusive husbands. Why is that? Especially when they don't have children. When you have children, I get the point. Where are you going to go with the kids, and how you're going to live, and and what do you do about child custody? But you don't have any children yet. Why aren't you running away from Mr. Psychopathic controlling freak? Why aren't you running away? And it's because not every minute of the day is unpleasant, folks. There's a lot of stuff going on where you think you are being loved or cared for. You have a connection, and he makes sure you have that connection, so that you know something. It's something is not quite right, but you can't put your finger on it, and you think maybe it's my fault, and he's really helping me. You get very confused. And a psychopath who is good at gaslighting, anybody who understands what gaslighting is? Gaslighting is when a psychopath will, or a narcissist will change. He'll say something happened that didn't really happen that way, or tell you got it wrong. You say, well, didn't you say you were going to bring this home from the store? And he goes, no, I never said that. And then you think, oh my God, did I get that wrong? And then he goes, hey, why didn't you do this? Because you said you would. And you're like, I did? I don't remember saying that. So you start to lose faith in yourself and put your faith in him, because he has it all together, and I must not be thinking right. And so there's so much manipulation and gaslighting going on that you lose an ability to think properly. And I think this is what happened here. So yeah, it's, sometimes you want to get out of a relationship early, but that's the whole point. When a psychopath looks for somebody, he looks for somebody, or a narcissist looks for somebody who is needy in some way. I mean, if you're not needy, you probably kick him to the curb really quick. But when you're needy, and that's for men too, because sometimes men, they will take a woman in. Oh my goodness, I know a guy, and he had never married. He was in his, I'm going to say 50s, not the best looking fellow, was retiring, had a house, had a reasonable amount of money, and suddenly he hooked up this young masseuse. Everybody told him, that girl's using you. She's using you. I mean, she was not a girl. She was a woman. So she actually had teenage kids. She's using you. But this was a lonely guy. He'd never been married. He never really had a good girlfriend before. Now this pretty good looking woman, she loved him. He should have said, wait a minute, something's fishy. But no, he married a woman. Oh my God. She sucked so much money out of him. Her kids came and lived with him. She left him, but the kids continued to live with him. And, and the question was, why are you letting the kids live with you and use your place for free rent and give them your vehicles when you don't even have the wife anymore? He was lonely. He was lonely, and something is better than nothing. And so sometimes when that narcissist psychopath comes along and they say, I can do this for you, and you get a feeling of somebody cares, somebody's going to take care of me, somebody's going to be my companion, company, sex, whatever it is you feel you need, they're there. So they don't go for people who are real strong and not needy. They find people when they're in that slump. And Brittany was in that slump. I mean, she just gone through what? She gone through two failed. She was engaged twice, and both of them failed. She must have wondered, what's wrong with me? I'm a beautiful woman. I'm a successful actress, and I can't keep a dude. She kept Simon. He married her. You see how that works? So, very sad. But that is another proof of you want to be careful who you hook up with. So let me see what I say here. This is very important. I didn't bring this up. Red rum. I feel Murphy desired. Oh, I did bring it up, but I'm going to bring it up again. Desired a father figure rather than a lover. He looked like a dad. They look odd in red carpet photos. Creeper guy. Yes, but yes, I think she did want a father figure, someone to take care of her and someone to be like a daddy to her. Even Sharon might have wanted a husband figure because she was, she lost her husband early on to, when he went to prison and dumped them. I mean, and now he kind of is like a husband to her, and she has kind of a father. Relationships aren't so straightforward. We have these different needs that can get filled in different ways. So a lot of times we have the romantic view where, you get to a certain age in your early 20s, you meet the man of your dreams, your soulmates, and off you go into the sunset. And that is not really what happens to a lot of people, So I think that, yes, I think she found a father figure, and I'm sure he was a lover too. I don't know if he was any good, but, but she got maybe both in one. She got the father figure and the boyfriend, and everything she wanted rolled into one, or at least he's going to make her think she did. And Sharon, on the other hand, again, she got the replacement husband, no sex, but replacement husband, and was taking care of her daughter finally. A guy who was finally taking care of her daughter and her, very, very sad. Let's see what else we have here. Nancy Drew, great name. I wonder if they determined how high the level of mold was, and is that level enough to kill you? Was she ever treated for it? She wasn't treated for mold. There was never any proof that mold did anything. And, I know that mold can make you sick. I know that, but how many cases have you heard of where there's mold in the house and the person actually just died from it? I mean, two people in the same house, but the third person was perfectly fine. I know. And maybe if neither one of them had any medications in their system, they never touched medications. Now, then I'd say, well, the only thing you could look at would be mold. But no, with all that medication that was going around, medication, drugs, we don't call it. I'm going to say that mold series is pretty weak. I get it. It's something to point out, but they point out, there was some mold over here. I mean, how much mold are we talking? Are we talking about massive amount of spores you're sucking down? I don't see any validity to it. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but considering we're dealing with him and what happened to his, was there mold in Monaco with his previous fiance? No. They were in Monaco. There wasn't mold there, but she was still getting very sick and very thin. And so I'm going to say, no, he has other methods other than mold. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Let's see what we got. Nick says, one needs the clear and lucid mind of Pat Brown to deal with confronting the human psyche like this. I have a clear and lucid mind now. It might be Stockholm Syndrome right here on the channel. Yes, that is true. Didn't her mom try to sue about that mold problem? Yes. Oh, this is a really great thing to point out. Yes, and I think her mom wants to believe in the mold problem. Why is that? If you were Sharon and you allowed Simon to control your daughter to the point of death, would you not feel guilty as all get out? Would you not feel, oh my God, I let him kill my daughter? I let him do this to my daughter. Why didn't I interfere? Why didn't I take my daughter to the doctor? Why didn't I run away with my daughter? Why would I let this happen? Don't you not think she feels massive, massive guilt? And not being able to deal with it, she's going to blame everything else but herself. So I think, yeah, the mold thing works really good because it takes all the responsibility away from her and puts it on something that nobody could have predicted. Yeah. So I think I would say massive guilt. Massive guilt. I'm glad you brought that up because I forgot to mention that one. Nancy Drew says this. After hearing the Hollywood lifestyle, I'm glad I didn't choose that path. Yeah, I mean, every lifestyle has its ups and downs. Everything has its positives and negatives, and it's all a matter of how you handle it and what you're willing to give up to keep it. So marriage has its ups and downs. Some people say, I don't know, I'm glad I didn't choose that path. But then there is good things about marriage. The companionship and having the family and the children and all this stuff. But there's also bad things about marriage as well. Same thing is true for every kind of line of work that one can go into, that one gets trapped into some of the issues that come with those jobs, whether you're a teacher or whether you're a police officer or whether you're a television person like I was for 15 years. There's always things. But the most important thing is, in my opinion, and is teach young people, is to always be able to step back and analyze, is this a good path? And what I'm doing healthy? Is what I'm doing ethical? Healthy and ethical. And if it's not healthy or ethical, you're probably on the wrong path. If you can do something and stay healthy and ethical, then probably you can handle whatever you're involved in. So you could be in Hollywood and be ethical and healthy. But if you can't, if you start losing your grip on healthy and ethical, then it's probably you're probably poisoning your life pretty badly. So those are two things: healthy and ethical. So keep that in mind, especially if you have somebody, that. Oh, here's an interesting one. My friend developed, I can never pronounce that, cell lung cancer. Her family blamed it on the black mold in the home, but she was also a smoker. Some of these things are very hard to determine. But I say the behavioral things in this particular case, that behavioral thing right there, that big behavioral thing. And it's not just with Brittany, it's with the ex-fiance and everybody in his life, everybody he's ever had contact with. The guy's a psychopath. There's no way around that. So with his behaviors and the things happening around him, I think we can probably rule out mold issues. So, that just to be rational about it. Yes, this is very true. You can see this on YouTube. Mom and Simon were on Larry King, kind of acted like they were a couple. Yeah. And that was a very creepy interview. A lot of defensiveness was going on. A lot of not really telling the truth was going on. And also it looked like both of them might've been under some kind of medication when they did the show. So they might not have been all together home there either. And so, yeah, it's very creepy. It goes to show something's wrong. Something was definitely wrong with the whole relationship. But I'm not saying that they slept together. I mean, I don't know that that's true. Now, could it have happened? Sometimes people sleep, with anybody just for the sake of being close to somebody, and because both of them, there's sex, I'm not saying they couldn't have, but I don't think there was a romantic relationship. I think it was a kind of demented, at that point, a demented relationship where she had lost her daughter and was completely grieving in a very, just a devastated way. And he had lost his ticket. And also this obsession. And he was also grieving in the way a psychopath grieves. Like, I lost her. Dang it. My possession is gone. So all kinds of weird stuff can happen. So, oh my God, let me see what else we got here. It's interesting. Really? I did not know this, Jeff. Really? Simon also wrote the screenplay about Edie Sedgwick, who died of barbiturate prescription intoxication and was pregnant. Seriously? Oh, how fascinating is that? I have not heard of that. Wow. And let me tell you something about fiction. Sometimes nonfiction is fictional. In other words, people want to write about their life and they just lie like dogs during their nonfiction. It's like, here's what happened in my life. And they're not telling the truth. And then there's fiction, which is really nonfiction because they can cloak it in fiction. So they can one of the things about being an author, and that's true for me too, is that if you're writing fiction, you have to write something you know about. Otherwise, how the hell do you write about it? In some way, you have to know about it, either because you're fascinated by it, or you spent years in research, or you lived it. One of those things. And people have asked me, why don't I write romance stories? Okay, anybody who knows me, I'm sorry, I'm not a very good romantic. I'm a very, very rational, logical person. I'm a crappy romantic. I'm just not romantic. I mean, I like the concept of romance, just not very romantic. I have no idea how to write a story like that. Some people ask me, why don't I write one of these stories about the rich and famous, where, an heiress, an heiress is, I don't know, she's in wherever she's in, and she goes off and meets this dark and fellow. He's like fascinating, but he's got this dark side. And then she meets the handsome guy he has that clear crystal personality. Which one should she pick? I don't know anything about rich and famous people. I've never been rich and famous. Now, I've been on TV, but guarantee you, I don't hobnob. I never hung out in high society. I don't know how to do that crap. So I don't know how to write about it. How am I going to write about something I don't know? But I can write about psychopaths. That's why Only the Truth, my mystery story, I can write about, because I understand how the people think. And there's some characters in the story which are very similar to my family. The main lead of that story, Sweet Billy Ray, in my book Only the Truth, is actually a combination of my ex-husband and a guy that used to live in my house. Now Billy Ray didn't turn out to be exactly those two, but something from those two led into it. And one of the women in the story, the older woman in the story, is very kind. She's really my mother-in-law. Now, she changed in the story. She morphed, but it came from someplace. So people write about what they know. So the fact that if Jeff wrote a story like that, sorry, Jeff, not you. If Simon, Jeff didn't write that story. If Simon wrote a screenplay like that, how interesting is that? Maybe he does know. Oh, Jeff says, you always make me do research, Pat. Haha, vicarious profiler. Hey, thank you very much. I can only do so much research in the short time that I have to do some of these shows. And so sometimes I get corrected by people who go, Pat, you should have, spent more time researching, or you would know all these names and dates, and I'm going to say, I'm very impressed by certain YouTubers who have all these details, and then they do all this editing, and they spend like 30 hours putting together one show. I can't do that. I study the issue of what happened to somebody. That's my field is crime scene analysis. Not all the other details of somebody's life. I just don't care that much. But I try to get enough of the details to understand how that affects the crime scene analysis. In this case, his history does, have something. Oh, this is interesting. They didn't use his screenplay, but he wrote one. Interesting. Wow. Oh yes, this is true. OJ's If I Did It book. Yeah, I think it's inside knowledge there. You think? Oh, wait a minute. Oh, this is interesting. Now, Lydia says he actually did not write that screenplay. He launched a lawsuit against the producers, and they gave him the writing credit to basically shut him up. Well, who knows? It's a sleazy world out there, and he might have written it. He might have not written. I have no idea, but fascinating. And this is in my opinion, he used the mom to make any money from Brittanys death. If you're a psychopath, you're going to use whatever you can use. But I do think that his life did fall apart after Brittany died. I do think he lost pretty much everything. And I think the other thing was, I think the walls were closing in on him. I think there were people coming after him, creditors and things that he had done, which were illegal. And I think the walls were just closing in. And so kind of like the guy who, suddenly gets in the midlife crisis and realizes he's going to go to prison for committing, embezzlement or something, suddenly offs himself and takes somebody else with him because he just doesn't, he doesn't want to deal with what he's got to deal with. Maybe the embarrassment of it, maybe to be a loser, you pretended to be a winner and now you're going to be a big ass loser, maybe that. No, I'm not going to go there. You've written off as COVID. No, we're not going to go there. but yeah, this is, I say, a really, really fascinating case. I'm looking backwards now to see if there's why would they have autopsies for pneumonia? Well, that's a good question. I think because she was 32 years old, it's not normal for a 32-year-old to keel over. Now, if she had been 92, they probably may not have done an autopsy. So it all depends on the state you live in and what the rules are for unattended death and also attended death. In this particular instance, there were people there who said they called 911. The people came, they took her, but still, she was 32 and shouldn't have died at that age. So that's why, now he didn't, by the way, I forgot to mention this. Simon did not want the autopsy done. And he made some really creepy claim that he didn't want her body cut up. So that makes you wonder, is that your real reason? Or is it because you don't want them to find out whatever you are afraid they're going to find out? So that was kind of suspicious that he didn't want the autopsy done. So that was fascinating. Let me see if there's anything else here before I hang it up for the day, but I'm looking backwards in time here. That's interesting. Heath Ledger also died of pneumonia, which is Hollywood version of drug complications. Yeah, I think there's a tendency to play some of those things down. When somebody makes a determination, a cause of death, it's not always as clear as people think it is. They get to the medical examiner gets to determine the cause of death, and not every medical examiner might exactly say if they all did the autopsy together, 50 different medical examiners, not every one of the medical examiners is necessarily going to agree with the exact cause of death. We have this weird idea that because it's scientific and all that, it's a doctor, hopefully not a coroner because he may not be able to do those things, but that they're always going to be right. 100%, everything's right. No, that's why sometimes when you have cases that go to court, you have a second medical examiner come in and do to do another autopsy on the person because they're like, I don't believe what that last one said. So it's not so absolute. So that's a good question. So anyway, I think that's about, heard last night that mom tried to sell the jewelry Simon made. Oh, yes, this is true too. Oh my God, yes. Mom tried to sell the jewelry Simon made for them, all fake jewelry. Yeah, oh my God, that is often very true. Psychopaths, again, will pass off stuff that's fake as real. And as long as that person never takes it to a jeweler to actually have it, to get checked out for the value, they may never have a clue that it's fake, especially if, that looks pretty, a lot of fake jewelry looks really good. And so they would have no idea and they would assume he's telling the truth, but in reality, not so much. So yeah, there I say that's psychopathy. That's just psychopathy. So, that was an interesting point. Let me see what Emily says here. In Michigan, a retired police officer often accompanies a funeral director for picking up an unattended death, even if the person has been in hospice. Oh, that's very good. I like that. It comes down to a matter of money. A lot of times it's like, how many people can you do? An autopsy costs money. Sending people out to do stuff costs money. If the person is expected to die, especially if they're older in hospice, a lot of times that's just accepted as if they die, it's considered a natural death. And even if it's unattended, can be considered a natural death. So let's say grandma's in, her room and she dies one night and somebody put a pillow over her face, but she's 97 years old and has dementia. And it's expected that she'll die. Will she get an autopsy? Maybe not, depending on where you live, even if it was unattended. So somebody may be collecting some money earlier than they should have wanted to collect, should have gotten that money. So hard to say. I mean, if something pops up as big red flags, then yes, something, they would go ahead and somebody say, hey, we got to check this out. But every state has different laws and different ways of dealing with it. But, sometimes it just comes down to money, because everything can't be spent on everything. Oh, a triangle love affair. It could be, but I wait a minute. Are we talking about the same? Are we talking about this case? I don't think Sharon killed anybody. I don't see any evidence of that. That she might have had a little thing for him. I don't know that he was sleeping with her. I mean, I just don't know that any of this is true. So this is one of these cases where we can gossip all we want. We can make claims for all kinds of things that we have no idea if it's true or it's not true. So I'm always against going overboard. I look at what do we actually know well enough to say, this is what makes sense in this particular case. Now, if I were a profiler at the time this happened, and the police had asked me, what do you think happened here? I might say, I've had my suspicions that this man had something to do with her death, whether over a period of time, whether it was more manslaughter, or whether he decided he didn't want that kid and he pushed her into more drugs or mixed up something for her, a cocktail did her in. And then it was a suicide later. I would say I would look into that more. That's what I would say. But I wouldn't jump to conclusions on things that I don't have a clue. So I try to stay away from the gossipy things. So, but I will agree with this. Simon groomed mom as well. He's such an opportunistic a-hole. He was. I mean, that's what a psychopath is. And the Munchausen syndrome thing, and which I do believe he had, but he groomed the mom as well. I agree with that, because I think she wanted what was good for her daughter, and he made it look like he was good for her daughter. So she went along with the program. And again, she lost her husband early on. So maybe this made for her finally she got the family unit in a weird way. I'm not saying it's exactly the same, but yes, maybe in a weird way she felt, the two of us, Simon and myself, are taking care of our girl. Not necessarily sexual, but he and I are taking care of our girl. And I think that's very, very likely she saw it that way. But then just says maybe they were allergic to an owl in the stairwell. That may be. I will be doing something on that stairwell case. I have to do that case at some point. It's on my list to do that case. But this is a good point. Michelle says, if I recall in the Lifetime film of her, she had made it clear she was done with acting and wanted to go back home where she came from. That would have pushed him over the edge. Yeah, I don't know that particular, whether the truth of that or what interview she said that in. But I do remember the interview where she was saying, I just want to have a family. She was maybe exhausted. She had also, by the way, her mother had been sick. Her mother had been sick, and she had taken really good care of her mother and pulled away from acting when her mother was sick. So I think Brittany was able to do something else besides act at that point in her life. And so she may well have said, I want a family. And this guy's like, not so on board with that. Here we go. We know Sharon had all Britt's money. We know Simon had massive debt and stole Britt's money. So if he hadn't died, he'd marry Sharon. I don't know that he would have, but I think the money was just so much gone at that point, except for the house and I think too many people were after him. So I think he just kind of worked his way out of things at that point. So sometimes psychopaths will quit when they feel like they've been defeated and they don't like what they're going to be labeled as. But it is really a fascinating case. And I really say wasn't that familiar with what all the issues were with it. And so it was interesting to review it. And I'll strongly say again, I think we're talking about manslaughter/homicide and manslaughter/murder and suicide. So it's a murder-suicide or a murder-manslaughter. kind of thing, but a very unusual case. And that's why I think it's going to probably be forever discussed as to what really happened. And I don't know that we're ever really going to know what happened, because the, main people are not around anymore. And it's hard to believe what people start saying on the outside. If Sharon starts saying stuff, we don't know if it's true. If other people start saying stuff, we don't know if it's true. But for all the theories out there, the mold theory, the totally natural deaths for 2 of them within 5 months, I can't go with that. And then the straight up poisoning by Sharon, I can't go with that. So I'm going to stay with my conclusion. We'll see how people react to my particular profile of the case. And below in the comments, please feel free to keep commenting below and discussing things. And I'll try to respond below. So, at any rate, thank you very much, Nicole. She says, I've really enjoyed hearing your thoughts. Thank you, Nicole. It's been a very interesting show to do. So I will see you all next Sunday, which case I do not know yet. And again, if you're new to the channel, please do subscribe. If you want to come to the Hangout on Wednesday and not just see the rerun, do go to Patreon below, click on it, and join. Again, a lot of my videos are demonetized by YouTube for reasons which I have no clue why. Maybe the word murder, maybe the word homicide. I don't know. But they're being demonetized. So all of your support will keep the channel going. So anyway, thank you very much. Thank you, Martin. This is a great show and good insight. Thank you. And great comments, too. This is true. We've had some really great people here today, which is why I like to do live. Live is really fun. So, at any rate, and if you have any other cases you want me to do, let's put them in the comments below, and I'll add them to my list. So, anyway, goodbye, everybody, and I'll see you Wednesday for Hangout, probably Wednesday, and next Sunday. So, bye-bye, everybody. I'll see you then.